Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode we're specifically taking a look through a vermin controller's point of view of Hike's new thermal scope, the Stella.
Oi! Oi!
Well, hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at a brand new product. It's been on charge all day and I've come home. I was late leaving work, so Rick's actually coming around in 20 minutes time for us to go out foxing. Before we do that, I want to mount this new scope from Hike. This is called the Stella, and the reason I've got my Hawk Frontier scope out, which has been lying redundant in the garage for some time now, is because I'm going to need the 30mm mounts off it. That's right, Hike have brought out a 30mm tube scope. Now the reason I'm doubly excited by this is because it also records sound as well. So, and here the unit is. Now the very first impression I have of the unit, it's got a bit of weight to it, but that's not always a bad thing. I'm pretty sure one man once said that
Heavy is good, heavy is reliable. If it doesn't work, you can always hit him with it.
we'll just have to excuse his nationality. But yeah, the scope itself, as you can see, conventional 30mm tube. It's still got a 50mm lens. I believe it's got the exact same gubbins in terms of the technical specs of the PQ50. So it's going to be very good quality. Detection ranges out to 2,500 meters, way beyond shooting capabilities, unless your name is Mr. Ripley, of course. So yeah, super excited to get this on. It feels brilliant, very smooth, kind of jog dial switch this side. Much more improved battery life. I believe the runtime of this unit is up to 13 hours. So I very much doubt I'll be needing my very crude rubber band power bank system that I have been running. But do you know what? That works for me really well. I can go foxing all night long with that battery pack attached to this. Underneath this cap here, we've got a USB-C charging port, and it's also the port that you can use to either run a battery pack on if you so desired, but you can also take the footage from that to your computer as well. So and again, later in this program we'll be having a look at what the footage looks like from this unit. You don't really need to know what comes with it, because essentially all you need is the scope and a USB cable. You know, the fact that it's got a pretty decent case and stuff like that's all well and good, but let's face it, when it's on the rifle it's going to stay on the rifle, and then it's going to go in your cabinet like anything else. Power on or off, photo or video mode, and then I'm not too sure what the third button does there, but do you know what, with there only being a couple of buttons, we'll figure it out. The menu and stuff is just a simple press, so you'll be able to go up and down the menu, quite positive clicks. It's not too loud, it probably sounds louder because it's quite near my microphone, but if you choose to zoom in, I suppose, I assume that's your zoom. Don't know, does that need to be silent? Maybe, we'll see. The focus feels very smooth, and I hope it's a bit like this one really. Once that's set, you very seldom need to change it. I only do it normally just so that the picture's as in focus as it can be for videoing purposes, but usually if you're out shooting and you're just out to do the job and get the numbers, then simply you can kind of set and forget. I have been super impressed with this PQ50. I was really impressed with the Thunder before that, so this has got some pretty big shoes to fill. It does appear that the rubber eyepiece has got a bit more travel in it, so that's probably going to be better for the slightly higher caliber users out there. And again, you can focus the AMOLED eyepiece with this ring here. I'm not too sure, but I don't know if the screen's a little larger or not. Maybe it appears like it might be. Yeah, I'll probably say it is. First impressions, pretty good. Let's see how it performs in the field. You don't need to see me mount it. It's just like mounting any other 30mm scope. But we are going to head down to my usual sighting place first. I've got some aluminium tin foil put on the box. Top tip for you. If you're sighting in a thermal scope, the aluminium tin foil is brilliant, but if you actually angle it back ever so slightly, you get a much better kind of heat reflection from that, and it stands out brilliantly to be able to zero the rifle. So there's a top tip for you. Right, I'm going to mount this. Rick's on his way around. Let's get foxing. So I've taken a couple of shots at, well, halfway in between 50 yards, and actually the first few shots were, I don't know, this far off centre. So the fact that I've managed to get it mounted so close to everything, you know, it's, the parameters are tight, but, you know, focus moves freely. It is nice and easy to focus, I'll tell you that. I've already got a couple of bits of feedback about it, but certainly image quality and stuff, you know, through the eyepiece, really good, just like it has been on the last 2 units. So it's definitely a better profile for fitting in the cabinet, that we do know. So, alright, Rick's down there at 100 yards. He'll go and stand behind the building, and we'll take the shot, and then he'll ring me and let me know where we're at. Using the scope's freeze frame image to zero it means that you only really need a couple of shots to get it pinpoint accurate. So here I am taking the shot. Rick points out to exactly where the bullets landed and tells me over the phone, and 2 more shots and we're basically an inch high at 100 yards. I soon figured out, once we got to the first location, what that additional button was on the scope. It activates the picture in picture. So here you can see the picture in picture both live there on that hare, and I was just testing to see what the zoom was like on a live animal. Not much later, I haven't actually set the clock, incidentally, so you'll see there that the clock appears at all kinds of weird and wonderful times throughout this video. I still haven't set it even now, nearly a month on. Anyway, fox number 1 spotted a couple of fields away. It had to have been a good 350-400 yards away, but very clearly ID it as a fox, and eventually it squeaks into range, and I take this one out off the sticks. I think it was still the other side. I see his eyes from here, look. Just the other side of the dike. Well, that's the first one down to the Stella. You could see it come from way over there. See it come from a mile off. Well, okay, not a mile, but a good way off. It's a dark one. My prediction is dog fox, only because we had a vixen here literally a few nights ago. So, and it is the dog. Nothing wrong with that shot placement. So he's an oldish lad. Dark, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So yeah, first one down to the Stella. Good result. Onwards and upwards. So that first night out was just a sultry fox. We didn't see any more. We did, however, see many, many hares all in one field. A couple of nights later, and it's Steve's first time to see the Stella scope in action as we go out on a beautiful evening. What an amazing view. As I stand here, driving along out the top of the Land Rover. It's just getting dark. We're now heading onto the farm to look for a fox. What an absolutely beautiful evening to be out. We are blessed. As we round the first corner of the farm, I see what I thought initially was a deer just at the edge of the dike. However, getting the scope and zooming in, I can clearly see the bounding behaviour as a fox is eyeing up a pair of ducks in the dike. I watch it for a few minutes, I then stop recording to go back onto the scope, only to realise it's actually gone in the dike trying to capture these ducks. They don't fly off, so I can only assume they've got some young, But as you can see, as soon as I start lip squeaking, it comes in like an absolute train. I handed Steve the GQ35L spotter, so he's actually looking at this fox coming in out of the passenger side window. I think that little belly chuckle means he's pleased with the result. Well, I tell you what, boys and girls, that was textbook. In this drain here, you could see, as we come through the farm, I could see something on the thing moving on it. I thought it was a deer at first. It was a long, long way off. But as we arrived, I see it disappear into the dike and not come out again, which is not deer behaviour, but it is fox behaviour. And then sure enough, got Steve just to reverse a little bit so I could see down the drain, and I could see the fox trying to get 2 ducks, which should come out on the recording. Yeah, as I suspected, vixen made a fair old mess because it went with a fair old pop. A bit further up there, probably can't see, but there's 2 ducks a bit further along. But God, that come bombing down this track here. Bombing down the track, and truck's parked at the end of the farm track there. So I don't know how far it was eventually, probably 100 or so yards. Nothing spectacular, but boy did that come in well. That fox I just took with the engine still running there, so you could hear a bit of the reverberation coming through. That one, engine off. Big difference there. Well, that one shouldn't be too hard to find. I was a bit late on the record, but it caught me by surprise. But it only ran back a little way, 60-ish yards, maybe 70 yards into the field, and all I could see was its head. Yes, that's definitely made a mess of that. Wow. There's a bit of something there. That's, yeah, definitely made a mess of that one. Well, that's the second one down, so not too bad so far. Definitely well impressed at how quick the scope turns on and how quick it records, so that's a good result. Back out with Rick now, and after a couple of unsuccessful evenings, even with a bright moon, we had a bumper evening with 5 foxes on the deck. Once again, this clip here is Rick filming through the GQ35L spotter as this beautiful barn owl gives me a little buzz pass. I'm actually on my way down to the bottom of the field, stalking into a fox that we'd seen from the very top of the farm. You can just see the fox here walking to the right of that wheeling. I need to go down the hedgerow, keeping some foliage in between me and the fox to get close. When I am in range and a fox does stop, I can't quite see through the thick tuft of grass until it moves off again. I'm a little bit wobbly on the sticks, and Rick's still filming right from the top of the farm here on the GQ35L, but it stops and I managed to get the shot off once I got my stance comfortable. I was a bit too wobbly there at first. I think from recollection that fox was in or around 147-ish yards, something of that nature. A little later, same evening, we're actually on the next field over, on the way out of the farm once again, and we see this fox from a good distance. The only thing that worked here was a little lip squeak, so I kept lip squeaking, got the fox's attention, and eventually it came in. It was a bit cautious and kept stopping, but again, we're on a very bright evening here indeed, so the fox, I think, can probably see us up silhouetted on the bank. As you can see, we're getting on for 3 minutes now of this fox cautiously coming in. Rick filming again for the GQ35L Griffin spotter, but the fox goes down nevertheless. I'm pretty sure this fox here was filmed on a separate evening while out with Rick, but once again it's at some distance. The lip squeaking was doing nothing. The fox was preoccupied trying to catch something in just inside that wheat field, you can see. So I reach into my pocket and get out the best fox call reed mouth caller, and I even have to change that, so I change the tone and pitch of that call, and eventually we get a reaction. The fox stands up and notices, and eventually starts to come in. As you can see here, I turn it. With such a bright moon and the wind having picked up, though luckily wind in our faces, this fox, super cautious, sits out, and you can see I've been calling here for nearly 4 minutes with this fox. Again, sometimes you just need a bit of patience, but I sense check the distance by zooming out and zooming back in again, feel comfortable enough, and again take the shot straight in the bib, and that one's straight down. What I don't anticipate here, having kept the caller going but changing it to the Vixen in heat call, and some may say it's a little late for that call at this time of year, all of a sudden a fox is on the farm track, what seemed like through the thermal very close indeed. However, having just shot that other fox, what I haven't done here, and unbeknown to me at this point, when it eventually stops, I go to take the shot and all I hear is a click. I hadn't cycled the bolt, so I have to then, that's where I realise I've not cycled it. So I cycled the bolt very quickly, put a round in, and luckily for me it's still stood there. I didn't have the bolt loaded. That was a good distance actually, wasn't it? Nah, that other one's closer. How many times have I said before, when you've shot one and you keep calling, always look behind you. What didn't we do? Didn't look behind us until Rick's here on the road right near us. How far do you reckon it was? No, when it see us on the road. Yeah, little dark vixen. She's had a litter somewhere. They're weaned anyway. She ain't going anywhere, will she? I think I need a fairly good taxidermist to. Yeah. I reckon that other one, I don't know, I'll range it back to the camera. I'm going to predict that that other one is a vixen as well. So we'll see. Well, this is the first one. We just picked up that fox just now. That was the second one we shot. This one was the first one that come in. Both very cautiously, but I think Rick's right, it is a dog. In fact, he ain't a bad size. A nice old tail on him. He's definitely a bit more of a lump. He was chasing something around in the wheat field here, and I tell you what, look, it is a bright night. I know the camera doesn't always show it, but I mean, well, in fact, I think it does actually here. But we literally just lost some cloud cover as the fox started coming in. That's why he was dead cautious. He sat down on a few occasions, but I kept calling. I kept calling, and he came in. He's a bit bare here, but that could be playing around with the cubs. He has got a nice tail. Been a while. while since I've had one off and done one. Yeah, not obvious there where it's hit, unlike the Vixen that had a gaping hole in the side because he was square on. So I aimed for the sort of bib area, but the body took the full brunt of that. Be a good one to get taxidermied, I suppose. No damage. So cracking result. Right, let's see if we can go and get a trio. On the way out of the farm, we do manage to get this fox here in thick vegetation. This a great example of where a thermal will trump a night vision scope easily. As that fox turned, you'd have never seen any eye shine or anything to look at in MV. It just moved off as I took the shot there. I asked it. New trainers now, don't it? We didn't make it too far. Anyway. Is it still alive? Is that one shot again? Yeah, needed another one. Now bear in mind this is the same evening, it's a really bright evening, a fox has been spotted on this field. I walk into the field to see if I can call it out. The fox completely flanked me and was stood just 20 yards away. 20 yards away on a really bright night. Jesus, that is really close. I certainly didn't have time to adjust the focus. Well, that has got to be the closest fox I've ever shot. I'm going to take the paces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 paces. That fox on a bright, check that out, on a bright moon, 20 yards. That's a Vixen that's had cubs. The tail's all chewed. So, there you go. Oh, that's number 4 for the evening. What a result. Well, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. This is Fox's final thoughts then on the Stella. I'm going to talk about all of the things I really like about the scope, but I'm going to start with a couple of things I would actually change. The first of which is a relatively minor point, but the microphone itself, which is situated quite far back on the scope, I'm assuming it's this little hole here where the buttons are. The mic sensitivity is very high indeed. You've probably heard on one of the fox shots in the video there, the peacocks that went off after the shot had gone off, they were absolutely miles away, and I didn't even notice them come the evening itself, but on this it kind of picked all of that up. On another occasion I actually shot a couple of rabbits for the gamekeeper out of the window of the truck with the engine still running, and you got to hear the kind of reverberation, if you like, with the gun resting on the truck door, so it kind of picked all of that up. So I guess I would ideally like to see that sensitivity turned down somewhat. Now I'm sure there's a trade-off there, because of course if you've got an IPX rated product which is kind of splash proof, etc., there has to be some kind of the limitations to what you can do with a microphone there. The other thing, of course, and I've seen it with countless scopes now, kind of ATN and a couple of other manufacturers suffer from the same thing. Dwayne's C50 scope that he uses. When you have a piece of metal bolted to a piece of metal that's moving, you are naturally going to get some clangs and bangs and stuff. But for me, again, as a content creator, I would just like to see that sensitivity turned down just a little bit. For the vast majority of people, the mic sensitivity is really not going to bother you. But for me, that is one minor detail. One of the other things that happened initially early on when I started using it is every now and then I occasionally accidentally pressed the power button instead of the record button. And once the power off sequence has started, you get 3 seconds counting down for it to turn off. There isn't any way of stopping that. So if you accidentally press the power button at the wrong moment, the scope's going to power down. Luckily for me, I was able to power it back on, and that's one good thing about it. It turns on quick enough. I was able to power on the scope, the crosshair comes up nice and quick, and I was able to take the shot. After more use, and I guess this is just then the answer to that really, is the fact that the more you use it, the easier it becomes to recognise the difference between the power button and the photo button, which, to be fair, the power button, as you can see here, is raised, and the photo button, which is below it, you can push it to take a photo or push and hold it to take video. They are different, but again, in the heat of the moment when you're ready to take the shot, it is something you just need to be cautious of. The more you use it, the easier it becomes. The last couple of times I've been out with it, it's not been a problem. And then the last one for me is the first time I saw that the USB cover had a tethered part to the cap. I thought, that's really sensible. You're highly unlikely to lose that. But there was this one time at Bandcamp where myself and Rick, hang on a minute, I don't like where that's going. There was this one time where I went out shooting with Rick, and I must have left the scope in standby mode. We'd finished foxing for the evening, dip the power button, goes in standby, and I must have forgot to then turn it off when I got home. So of course, a couple of nights later, we go out, get the rifle out of the cabinet, we start going down the farm track, and I went to power on the scope, nothing happened, it was dead. Yeah, so my mistake, I'd left it on. The good news is I had both my power bank and my USB-C cable, so I was able to simply revert back to my rubber band, strap my power bank on here and plug in via the USB. But what I did have to do, because I didn't have a tool, you can remove this, which is quite good. There is a little, what looks like a flat-headed screw holding this a bit of string in place, but I didn't have anything with me to remove it, so I had to kind of wrap that around the cable to keep it taut, to stop it from clanging and banging on the scope here, because of course you don't want that when you're out foxing. You need to be quiet and you need to be stealthy. The good thing about that is that it was very easy to literally plug in your power bank and get some juice back into the scope and continue using it, which leads me on to the first of the good points about the scope: battery life. It's immense. You can quite literally use this scope on an all-nighter. I think the battery life is around 13 hours, and if you really need to, you can actually remove the top cap and actually insert a CR123A battery into the top. I think those will give you just over an hour's runtime by themselves. The one thing this scope has definitely done, because I had it with a Thunder and I had it with a Panther, I had the equivalent of what we see in electric cars, that range anxiety or that battery life anxiety, because the two previous scopes only have run times of kind of 4, 5, 6 hours maybe, whereas this is kind of more than double that. So you can kind of, I've never used it. I've never put a CR123 battery in this unit, haven't needed to, and with the exception of me running out of battery life, and that was my fault, it's just something that you don't need to be concerned of. So for that is a massive tick in the box. Next up, and I think it's quite an obvious one, this scope in its 30mm physical form is a very practical, pragmatic solution to thermal scopes. Clearly the Panther, the Thunder, other units, when you look at night vision units such as the PARD, 008s, etc., they do sit quite high up on the rail. The Thunder and Panther for me were very good at grabbing the rifle, because I could grab the rifle right in the centre mass there, and that was handy. This one I've got to go right to the front, but nevertheless it goes in the bag much easier, the rifle case, and it also goes in the cabinet. It spends most of its life in the cabinet by the time obviously it comes out for foxing. So actually fitting in the cabinet shouldn't be underestimated. That's a nice, easy scope to place in the cabinet. The turret, what would be the turrets, I guess, on a conventional scope are nice and small. They don't stick out like this. So again, its physical form and profile lend itself to being very pragmatic in the field. The other thing, as you've noticed with mine in particular, is I didn't have to change the mounts. These are the same worn mounts that you may have seen at the beginning of the video that I had on my Hawk Frontier scope, and it gives this scope an incredibly low profile. Now that difference of having a low profile to having a high profile is that there's less margin for error. I've actually broken 2 records with this scope. The longest confirmed distance kill on a fox at 281 yards, and it was running away. And then also the closest fox that you saw in this video, just 20 yards. Not really having to alter the zero too much. I've used a very nice fast bullet in this rifle, and for me personally, again, this scope and rifle combo, knowing the ammunition, gives me a lot of confidence. When I put that crosshair on my target, it's going down. It requires little effort, and the beauty of it is, and I guess this will be the case for most people, if you are just using this as a tool of the trade, you'll very seldom actually need to adjust it. Once you find that kind of sweet spot where you can ID stuff at a decent range, and even when it's coming, it might not be, you don't have to fanny around getting it in focus and stuff like that. I do, because I'm conscious I'm filming, and I always try and get the best possible picture. Sometimes you're in the heat of the moment and you don't have time, but most shooters are not going to be worried about whether the picture's in focus and stuff. So that though lends itself again to being very pragmatic. It's a nice usable function, and it's just something that I noticed straight away. Lovely and smooth, easy to zoom. So yeah, once again, another big tick in the box. Something else I really like is the slick zoom. So I thought at first it might be a bit of a hindrance. It was a concern, I have to admit. These positive clicks here on the zoom wheel, which also doubles up as the menu system. I thought, when I'm out in the field and I've got a fox coming in, if I need to zoom in once or maybe twice, is that going to be heard? But I can honestly say, and I've shot plenty of foxes with it now, it's simply not the case. I mean, it feels great. The quality of that dial feels like it's, you could do it all day long and it just would, go forever and a day. And moreover, I really like the progressiveness of the zoom, in the eyepiece and on the image, and you've probably seen that in the video. You click it, it zooms in, not juddery at all. It kind of gradually comes in and then to the next stage, and then same on the way out as well. So for me, that initial concern clearly quashed by using it in the field, and definitely making sure that it doesn't affect, or the foxes can't hear it, etc. So yeah, good one, that one. Some of you may remember that I didn't initially, when I first started using thermal scopes, like the picture-in-picture. I kind of felt it was a bit too busy. I've kind of, again, I've transitioned, if you like, into kind of not really shooting without it. The picture-in-picture in this is great. It gives you the zoomed-in image all of the time there at the top. And the other really good feature about that is that the crosshair changes colour, so it contrasts. If you've got your crosshair initially is black predominantly if you're on black hot. So when your crosshair moves over the heat source of the animal, the crosshair automatically turns white. So that kind of reassurance that your crosshair is white, therefore you must be on target, gives you, I think, an extra air of confidence. It's something that takes a little bit of getting used to, the picture-in-picture. Again, people would know that initially when I started using them, I didn't used to use it at all. But now, having used it, got to grips with it, I think that's a really good plus point. And moreover, you can retain a good field of view. So you only have to have the main picture probably zoomed in on certainly no more than 4 times, but your main picture-in-picture image there is going to be on your 8 times zoom. So again, it gives me a lot of confidence. At the same time, I can see a good field of view whilst having that zoomed in image as well. So if you do get a runner, you don't have to mess around trying to zoom out quickly. You can already see where it's going to, should a follow-up shot be required. You've got your built-in Wi-Fi, it's IPX8 rated, so it's kind of shockproof, waterproof or splash-proof. So it's got plenty of other features, but as a vermin controller and out in the field, the points I've mentioned about its practicality and stuff, those are the things that I think are important to us as vermin controllers. And ultimately, would I recommend it to my mates? Well, Steve, the gamekeeper, he's looking at getting a thermal scope. He's now used this one. He has used other branded scopes that I've had the fortunate position to be able to try, and I think this is very much at the top of his list. If you do get the chance to have a look through it, please do, because I think you'll be suitably impressed. For me, it gives me a massive confidence booster going out with this kit. as of yet. I think fingers crossed, I think we may have missed one. I'm not going to lie and say I haven't missed one yet with it. One thing I do know is there are very, very few, if any, again it might be one, that have actually gotten away. So there we go. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, next time out, I've been out ratting and everybody loves a spot of that. Take care, stay safe, and as always, happy shooting. I'll see you next time.